I am going to tell you a story. It is a story from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Rabbi Nachman was the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism in 18th century Eastern Europe, and he was known as a great dancer. One of his followers said, "If you never saw Rabbi Nachman dance, you never saw good." And he was a master storyteller. I'm going to tell you a section of his last story, The Seven Beggars, and I'm going to tell you the story of the first beggar, who is very old and blind. So this beggar appears at a wedding. It's an orphan boy and a girl who've grown up and they're going to get married. And this old beggar appears and he gives them a blessing. He says, "You should be exactly as I am." And then he tells them this story. When Rabbi Nachman began to tell this story, he said, "Ich will schon heben meises erzählen." I'm going to tell you a little story. There was a shipwreck. It was terrible, and everybody that was on the ships was cast adrift into the ocean. They lost everything, and they were freezing, and they thought they were going to die. But they didn't. And they came to an island, and inside the island there was a tower. And inside the tower, it was safe, and it was warm, and there was dry clothing for everybody to wear, and something nice to eat. It was so good. So one night, we were sitting around the tower. Oh yeah, I was there. I was a youngster. We were sitting around the tower when all of a sudden, this guy, I can't remember his name, but he had a big personality, if you know what I mean. He was chutzpahdik. And he turns to everyone in the tower and he says, "Let's make a contest. Which one from us got the oldest memory?" Why not? I mean, we weren't going anywhere. We were shipwrecked. So at first, nobody said anything. But then all of a sudden, the oldest guy in the group, this guy was a real Altishker. He puts his hand to his head and he says, "I remember when the apple was cut from the branch." To tell you the truth, we didn't know what he was talking about. But we felt it was an old thing. And then the second from the oldest guy says, "Yeah, that's an old apple. But I got an older memory because I remember when the lamp was lit." Also not clear, but old. Then the third from the oldest guy said, that one with the chutzpahdik personality says, "Yeah, lamp shmamp, apple shmapple, big deal. I remember when the fruit began to take a shape." And he set something off in this room because now everyone has an older memory. The fourth from the oldest guy says, "I remember the seed when it was brought to plant and make the fruit." The fifth from the oldest guy says, "I remember who invented the seed." And then the sixth from the oldest guy says, "Shah! I remember the taste from that fruit before the taste was in the fruit." Now we were really talking some serious old things. The seventh from the oldest guy says, "I remember the smell from that fruit before the fruit smelled." And the eighth from the oldest guy says, "I remember the look from that fruit before the fruit had a look." Old, so old. We were speechless. But then I had to speak. I had to speak because even though I was the youngster, I remembered. Ich gedenk gar nicht. I remember Nothing. So there we were, sitting around the tower, having a nice time, thinking about nothing, when all of a sudden we hear the flapping of wings, and look, up there, flying into the tower is this eagle, this great eagle, and he talks and he says, "Nice story, everybody, listen. Your ships are repaired. I'm going to fly you down to the ships on my wings in order from the oldest first to the youngest last." So why does he fly me first and that Aldachka last? Now, we're outside the tower with that eagle, and he says, "Your ships are repaired, but before you go, I'm going to tell you the meaning from your memories. The first, who remembered when the apple was cut from the branch, this was the baby cut from the cord of his mama. The second, who remembered when that lamp was lit, this was inside the mama, for it is written in the Talmud that a lamp burns above the head of the child in the womb, so it can see from one end of the earth to the other. The third, who remembered when that fruit began to take a shape, this was inside the mama, growing big from such a little thing. The fourth, who remembered the seed that was planted, that was the spritz of life emerging and entering. The fifth, who remembered who invented the seed, this was the spark of life circling around the head of your father, your tate. Now listen to me, listen. The sixth, who remembered the taste of the fruit before the taste was in the fruit, this is the soul, nefesh. The seventh, who remembered the smell from that fruit before it had a smell, this is the spirit, ruach. And the eighth, who remembered the look from that fruit before the fruit had a look, this is essence, neshama. And you, the eagle says to me, you are the youngest, but you have the oldest memory of all, for you remember what was at the beginning, you remember nothing. And then that great eagle said to all of us, your ships are repaired. You can go to them. They are your bodies. They were shattered, but they will be repaired. Go home. And then that great eagle wrapped me in his wings and he said, come with me. We will circle the world together, for you are just like me. You are so young, but so old. And this is the blessing I give to you now, that you will have a long life like mine, and you will be exactly as I am, as old as I am, and as young as I am.